Hey, how you doing? This is John, and welcome to John's Long Box. Today we got Pete Simeti from
Hey, what's up, John?
Comics here. How you doing? I love when Pete shows up.
Oh, thank you for having me, man.
I wanted to talk about this last time, and I think King Cryptid came and hit it on me. But my sister, for no reason whatsoever, sent me
Nice.
a big old Christmas bag of all these D. Martin roasts.
Nice.
So I
No
want,
reason whatsoever. That's a
well,
great gift.
well, she knows I think you posted something about the D. Martin roast on Twitter, and I commented on it. My sister goes, "Oh, I didn't know you liked D. Martin roast," so she sent me all.
Are those the roasts or are those the
It's the
variety
variety
show?
show. It shows you how.
Look like
Oh,
the
it's
yeah, because it
it's
looks
the
like the
variety
variety
show.
show. Like
Oh, I thought it was the roast.
they
It's
got like
still
a
in shrink wrap.
compilation. The roasts, the last I checked, were all still available on Tubi. If you want
Yeah,
to check those out
my
for
wife and I
free.
have been watching them on Tubi. That's why I did.
Yeah.
Oh wow! It shows you how I never even looked in this bag.
Oh man,
She
those are
sent me
good though.
some Tony Bennett.
Oh man, wow. Look at that.
Oh, it's
Jeez, man.
funny. Yeah, here you go. Here's some D. Martin. My wife, my wife and I have been watching the D. Martin roast. What is this? What about Bob? One of these things is not like the others. And then some Tony Bennett. Now, who's your favorite out of all these old times crooners?
It's Dean Martin.
It is D. Martin. I
Yeah.
gotta say, I like D. Martin the best, but I gotta say, Tony Bennett's voice is my favorite.
Oh, interesting. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I stood next to him at City Field once. He was singing the national anthem, and I was working there. I was an electrician, so I was out on the running the wire, and he stood next to me. First time in my life, I was like, he
That's
was in his
awesome.
90s,
Wow.
so you know,
Wow, man. That's great.
yeah,
Man. Well, you got a whole bag of awesome right there.
yeah.
Wow.
My sister sent it to me, and I got the mailman handed me the package while I was doing something in the garage, and I put it and forgot about it until you and I started talking.
Well, there's some good stuff on there. Those compilations, they're not complete episodes, but they're
Yeah,
fun.
it's
They're
selected greatest
yeah.
hits of the variety show.
There's a lot of episodes on YouTube. Not the whole series, not even close, but there's a lot of them that are complete and full on YouTube. But yeah, man, I wish they would put out a whole complete full thing. That's like the closest that's actually come out on any kind of platform, whether it was VHS, DVD, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this: since we're talking about the black and white days and the old time days, what's your favorite sitcom? I'm real curious that
Ooh,
something's going to tell me that you're going to say the same thing as me.
an older one, you mean?
Yeah, like I have this weird thing with sitcoms. I'll watch them and watch them and watch them, and then all of a sudden I'm like, I'm done, and I never go back. Like
One of
Mash,
the
one
older
day
ones.
I'm like, I got filled up with Mash. Not that I don't like it or anything. I was just like, there's no need to watch Mash anymore.
Yeah, I hear ya. Yeah,
Like
one of the older
Cheers one
ones that
day,
I
I was like,
love that I keep going to is Car 54.
okay, that's not. I was mine is the Odd Couple.
Oh,
I
okay.
could go back to the Odd Couple over and over, and I could quote the Odd Couple. I just love the Odd Couple.
Yeah, I think I've seen the whole car, and there's only 2 seasons of it, but maybe 50 to 60 episodes
Ooh, ooh,
of Car
ooh,
54. Oh, yeah.
Jehoshaphat.
Yeah. Tootie and Muldoon. Yeah,
Yeah.
man. That show is great. And then also, I love the Abbott and Costello show. I'm not, I don't mind the movies, but I love the show. The show is almost like a precursor, like 50 years, 40 years, whatever, prior to Seinfeld. It's got
Yeah,
such a ahead of its time kind of all the different plots that they weave, the apartment life setting, and the crazy stuff they get into. It's great.
I remember, and you grew up. You grew up in the same area as me of Long Island. It was we'd go to church on Sunday, and then after church, we we would watch like it was like the Bowery Boys, then Abbott Costello, and then like either westerns or horrors on
Hmm.
we the three major networks. That was during the winter. During the summer, of course, we went out and play. Oh, Kevin Ryan says, Sanford and Son. I will say Sanford and Son was good, but Sanford and Son had the greatest theme song of any.
Bow, bow, bow. Bow, bow,
Yeah,
bow,
that is
bow.
That is the catchiest, the greatest. Everybody knows that. That was my ringtone on my phone back when, getting cool ringtones
Oh
was
yeah,
a
yeah.
cool thing. Sanford. And every time the phone rang, people like, I love Sanford and Son.
Oh
Yeah.
man, classic stuff, man.
Yeah.
Classic.
The Street Sweeper by Quincy Jones. What is that one? What is it?
Is that the name of that song?
Is that the name of the song, Kevin? Is that what it's called? That's cool. Like
Yeah, I know some theme songs were actually songs. I wonder if
yeah,
is that's
Mash.
the name. I gotta check it out. Yeah, like the Mash one was like
That's called Suicide is
suicide is
Painless.
painless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you ever see the movie, the Mash movie?
I must have seen it a while ago. I had to have.
I
I don't
remember
remember much of it though.
it was on HBO. My older brothers and sisters and their friends, we were all watching it, and then what's her name? The woman who played Hot Legs. Why can't I think of her name? The shower curtain fell down. It was the first time I saw a naked woman. And I was like, and his mom and dad's gonna find out. Like I went downstairs. I was like, oh, I'm gonna get in trouble. They were all laughing at me. I was a little kid.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Oh man. I'm trying to think of what else. Let's see. So I love Car 54. I mean, I like Adam's Family, the Munsters. Those were fun
Monsters is
too.
great.
Yeah.
Oh, Cam showed up. The Honeymooners, classic 39 guy for old. Yeah, the Honeymooners. Cam and we went to I worked at the comic books. It's funny how the Mandela effect. I always remember Cam as working with me at the comic book store, but he never actually worked there. And we used to quote the Honeymooners back then. Oh, we're going bowling, Alice, but we're not going bowling. The Monkeys. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I love Gilligan's Island.
Oh my God, did I love Gilligan's Island?
Man, yeah, Love Boat.
Now let me ask you, Marianne or Ginger?
Oh boy. Guess it depends what day of the week.
Yeah.
It's
growing
tough,
up,
man.
Growing up, I liked Ginger. And then as an adult, I like Marianne. And then you know what? I'm starting to go back to Ginger.
Yeah, well, they hit you at different phases of life, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just, you struggling just start my work career. I was like, Marianne would be really good. Come home and have a banana cream pie. And
Yeah. I mean,
now
if
that
I
I'm in
had
my
to,
50s, I'm doing okay. Having a Ginger on your arm wouldn't be too bad.
yeah.
Yes. I have
Marianne
to agree,
definitely would be the wiser choice. That's for sure.
Oh, that's right. Cam worked security for free on those 24-hour sales. Yeah. Oh, Pete, let me ask you, since you grew up on Long Island, do you know the store, The Incredible Pulp?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, it was as far as I know, it was like the first and oldest comic book store on Long Island.
Wow.
Yeah.
Where was it?
It was in Baldwin, Long Island.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Larry owned it, and then he sold it to another guy, Larry, who I became a personal friend with. And just that is just like a. Did you have a local comic book store as a kid that you just like? You were that little kid on the bicycle.
My local one was Amok Time.
Oh wow!
Named after that Star Trek episode.
Yeah, I don't live too far away from Amok Time.
Yeah, and it used to be in the Tri-County Flea Market,
Yes.
avid like strip mall thing. And speaking of Tri-County Flea Market, I spent a lot of time there on the weekend at the mezzanine level. I don't know if they still do it, but they had like comics and cards and all kinds of stuff. And I used to.
Where is that? Is that in what town is that in?
That's in. It's kind of like the middle. It's on Hicksville Road.
Yes.
No, not Hicksville Road. It's
Yes.
on Hempstead Turnpike.
If you see the chat,
And
the very first comment on the chat is by Arthur Tripp. He still runs a booth from that flea market.
Oh no way! So they still do it? Yeah.
Yeah, they still do it, man.
I must have been.
We would go
man.
there. I would go there and talk to Arthur. He worked for Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, and he ghost wrote some scripts for early DC and stuff. So.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would just.
I got to answer this question for Cam.
Spend
Jennifer
an hour
or
or two
Bailey?
on the weekend.
Bailey. There's not even a question. To something about Bailey and Mrs. Carter and Marianne. I'll die happy. I just hope my wife's not watching this upstairs.
Uh-oh.
Oh, one last question I got to ask you. Who do you think is the best sitcom character of all time?
The best character of all time,
Yeah.
man. You're coming hot and heavy with the questions today,
Yeah, I don't
man.
know why. I
I'm
don't know
not
why.
prepared. I'm not prepared.
Yeah, they're good, good. Now we'll get some good, honest impulse answers. You didn't have to prepare
I'll
something
tell you
clever.
one of the ones I love the most, probably Jack Tripper, John Ritter.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. Jack Tripper. I was going to say Herman Munster. I think is just one of the best characters.
Yeah, there's so many that are up there, man. But
Jack
yeah, if
Tripper.
I had to just, because
Felix Unger.
I'm trying to think of characters that the whole show would not have been the show
Oh,
without them. Among the favorite shows I have,
yeah.
and
Yeah, obviously without
yeah,
Jack Tripper, but I will still say Mr. Furley over Jack Tripper. You know, Mr. Furley would like he would basically call his wife a whore and then go like this.
are you thinking of Mr. Roper or Mr.
Mr. Roper.
Yeah,
I
because
said
Mr.
Mr.
Furley's
Furley. Oh
Don
yeah, now
Knotts.
I'm
Yeah,
embarrassed. Yeah, Mr. Roper. Norman Fell. Norman
yeah. I
Fell.
never. They shouldn't have done that Roper's spinoff. They shouldn't
No,
have
that
done.
killed him.
You know what would have been great instead? And we watch the show all the time. It's always on Pluto. And what would have been great for Three's a Crowd instead? I mean, just continue Three's Company with Jack, and you could have this spinoff if they were going to do a spinoff. It's weird to have a spinoff with the main character. You would just leave them on the main show. That kind of thing never
Yeah,
really happens.
because they
This,
proved that the women were interchangeable. As mean as that
yeah,
sounds,
and
I
the
haven't.
spinoff, you could have had it just called where Two's Company, Three's a Crowd plays on the whole thing with Three's Company. You could have had Two's a Crowd and made it with Larry and Mr. Furley, and they have
Oh,
to live
or
together,
Jack and Larry. They moved
you
to
know.
another and
But yeah,
Jack
or
and Larry
don't
go out
have
hitting
yeah,
on chicks.
right, yeah, don't have Jack getting married per se, and you could have had like Larry and Jack move together. There's all kinds of different ways a fun spin-off could have happened, but
I,
they
I I
really
love the match game. Who like Gene Rayburn would just like if you know you open up the door and you find a blank. Dun, dun, wa-da-da-da, wa-da-wa-da-wa-da-wa-da. I started watching the match game PM. They're getting drunk, because they said they would film like 4 or 5 episodes in one day. Like they would film the entire week on a Monday or something like that. So if you just happened to catch the fourth episode, they were stinking drunk by the end of it.
yeah, you got to keep those answers flowing,
Yeah, and they all got
get
cigarettes and
loose,
ashtrays. Just
right? Yeah, I love that one, and I loved Password.
password was good.
Yeah, and of course, Super Password. Love
Aristophanes.
Bert Convy.
Do you remember that when the Odd Couple when they were on Password?
Oh yeah, yeah, yep.
Yeah. I was did I tell you that story? I went to go see John Zorn. He's like an avant-garde jazz musician, and he just came back to New York for the first time after being away for a long time. And he said, "It's good to be back in New York, but man, there's no more Odd Couple on Channel 11 at 11 o'clock." He goes, and I find that totally. And I yelled out, "Aristophanes!" And he got all excited. He brought me to the front of the stage. He gave me his autograph. He goes, somebody gets what I'm talking about.
No way! Wow.
Is there a better sitcom character than George Costanza? George Costanza was the best thing about Seinfeld, and Seinfeld was the worst thing about Seinfeld. Everybody in Seinfeld was better than Seinfeld, but
I think that was the point, though. Like he was the
yeah,
straight man for everybody. But
yeah,
you can't have that show without him either.
right, yeah,
You
yeah.
know.
He's a straight man. But growing up, I loved Oscar Madison because I was a sloppy kid. But as an adult, I watched that show and I realized Felix made that show. I'm laughing at Felix. He cracks me up. He's the driving force of that show. What a great character. So I'll say Felix Unger is a better character than George Costanza, but I'm biased. I'm old man. Oh, and you mentioned Gilligan's Island,
Yeah.
and you're a comic book writer, and you're a conspiracy guy. So, what do you think about this conspiracy I heard about Gilligan's Island? That what was his name? Sherwood Schwartz, is that his name?
Yep.
That there were 7 castaways, and each one was one of the 7 deadly sins.
Oh, I could see that.
Mr. Howell was greed. Lovey was sloth. the skipper was it Wraith?
Wrath, yeah,
Wrath.
yeah.
Uh, uh, Ginger was
Lust.
Lust. Yeah, the
What would
professor was
Gilligan be?
Pride, and the professor was Pride, and who am I leaving out? And Gilligan was Envy because whatever. That's the only one that falls apart on me.
Yeah, yeah. I guess like that's a. I mean, those are good character dynamics to work with to shape some of their motivations as characters, but yeah, it does kind of fall apart with some of it. I mean, where's you know gluttony?
Oh, Gluttony is Marianne because she's always feeding everybody.
Oh,
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah, yeah. Those are the two weak ones.
Hmm.
And then somebody said that Gilligan's Island was a prequel to Lost. It was the same island that wouldn't let you leave.
Yeah, it's like that. Definitely.
I love
They
that.
were
That would have
they
been great.
obviously just went, well, what if we just made this as serious as we could?
And what's her name? Marianne, like Dawn Wells. Supposedly she took care of Bob Denver and somebody else, like in their old age. Like she was just like
Wow.
a kind person, and she married a lawyer, and he said, "Don't take the pay, get residuals." And everybody else, Alan Hale and all of them said, "This show's not going to last long. Just take the pay." And she was like, "Well, I got to listen to my husband." And they all got paid up front, and she made money for the rest of her life. That show's never been on. Never not been on TV. So I can't believe the show ended with them still stranded. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
they had that movie, right? Return to Gilligan's Island, the TV
Yes.
movie.
And the Harlem Globetrotters went there. Yeah, they turned it to a resort, right? They ended up wanting to go back.
Yeah, which is a lot like what happens in Lost when they leave the island. They're like, we have to go back.
Oh, she took care of Mrs. Howbaum. Okay, okay, okay. Everybody, yeah, all right. I got it. I got it. But I knew she took care of him. She was a kind person. Beautiful. Up, did she just die? Did she just pass on?
It
But
feels like she did, but it was probably a couple of years ago.
yeah, yeah. Time is. But she was like physically beautiful until the day she died.
Oh yeah, she was great. She had
Yeah.
a lot of energy still, and she was totally there, and yeah, she
And
looked great.
and Bob Denver was an old stoner in West Virginia. Grew a pot farm. he never stopped being Dobie Gillis's pal, right? Yeah, he was.
Yeah,
Yeah.
seriously. Yeah, the beatnik.
Yep. Speaking of which, did you see? I don't know why I'm just ranting and raving tonight. Did you see Bucket of Blood? Roger Corman. Bob Denver was the artist who he
Oh
accidentally
yeah.
yeah he accidentally kills a cat and then he
Yep.
covers it with plaster to hide it. And people are like, look at this modern art. It's a what do you call this one? And he goes, I call it Dead Cat. and then he goes around murdering people and covering them with plaster of Paris. Great movie.
Yeah, yeah. That was a good one.
Yeah.
That was a like a horror anthology, wasn't it? Like there were
Uh,
different stories.
oh,
Wasn't that?
maybe there was. But I probably only remember that one.
Unless I'm
Oh,
thinking
she
of a
died of
different one.
COVID. Oh, yeah. And you got to hang with her. Wow. Justin Kevin Ryan hangs with the coolest people. He showed me a picture of him hanging out with you.
Oh yeah. Years ago at
Yeah, you look like a
Terrificon.
baby.
Yeah, years ago.
All right. So, what do you think of all of these? I'm just whatever's coming to my head. What do you think of all these people all of a sudden turning on Dan Didio? Now that he has no power to hire and fire these people, they're all turning on him.
You're gonna hate me, John. I have no idea what's going on with
Oh,
that.
I don't hate you.
What
I
happened?
never hate you, Pete. Well, Dan Didio went on John Delarose's channel, and he's trying to promote his new comic book company, which is what he's supposed to be doing. Everybody's got to promote their own stuff. And John Delarose is Comicsgate, so now like Kwanzaa Yosefo and all these people are like, "Oh, I disavow him." How brave that you disavow a guy who can no longer hire or fire you. I think it's pathetic.
The only question I have is why did Didio go on John's channel instead of going on like Ethan's?
I don't know. I don't know. Probably John just probably asked. I don't even know. I
Interesting.
can't answer that question. But yeah, he should have went on Ethan's.
Interesting. Well, that's the only thing I got to wonder about.
Yeah.
Everything else, I'm like, yeah, of course. That's the way it is.
Yeah, I just think it's
Par for the course in comics.
yeah, I just think is there any more industry more dysfunctional than comics?
I think I don't know. I
I'm
don't
trying to
know.
think.
I don't know many other industries inside and out. I
I
know a
know.
couple because I'm sort of close to them, and it seems like they're all kind of a train wreck. The more you find out, and then I know a couple people who are involved with a couple other industries where you'd think there couldn't possibly be drama in that, and then there is.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, I guess. Yeah,
It's
we're
it's
skewed. This is what we're interested in.
it's everywhere. It's unfortunate.
Yeah. So, what I went off on my TV. Oh, okay. Just Kevin. The reason it got so much. Yeah, Bounding into Comics covered it. Del Arrows works for Bound. Okay. All right. All right. I don't know. I think Dan Didio is a good guy. I never met the guy personally, never
Yeah,
spoke
I
to him.
don't know. Yeah,
But one thing I will say is that guy knew in and out DC Comics. That guy knew every character. He knew he knew the past. So what else do you want? I guess you want more sales, but
yeah. I mean, it's with corporate comics, especially. I find it's really difficult to constantly find who do you point the finger to because there's so many layers of
yeah,
what goes on. So certain things, I'm like, well, you get a higher up like Didio, but then it's one of those things where how much power and control did he really have, and who was telling him to do what, and direct a company, and don't do this, do that. There's
yeah,
certain decisions that obviously he did make, but then there's other things that happen where I think more people were upset about even though there's certain directions that the characters go in. I mean, that kind of almost always happens when you can agree or disagree on how
yeah.
they handle it. But it's how I think the creators handle the fans being upset about a lot of that. And that's when it turns into like, whoa. Because if anything, it's been a time honored tradition in comics where you write the letter, you put it in the comic, you get a response. It's never really been this situation for the most part. There's been a couple little things here and there throughout over the decades, but there's never really been that kind of weird, agitated, defamatory kind of nonsense that's occurred in the comic
Oh
industry
no,
in the past, I don't know, 7, 8 years maybe. And so I think that is the majority of where it is. But at the same time, I'm like, well, it's odd again that why do they let that happen? Why do the people at the top let that happen, especially where their bosses have bosses who have bosses. There's like it's
right?
like Office Space. They got like 7 bosses. So why would you let if they make these big acquisitions that cost billions of dollars to obtain these intellectual properties to develop them? I'd be really pissed off about like who did we hire to just tell off these customers?
Exactly. Now,
So
just
it's
imagine
weird that that doesn't really seem to happen so much. So it seems
you're
like
writing a comic book right now, King Cryptid. Now, just imagine if one of your artists just started telling off somebody undeservedly. Like, dude, you're hurting our team. You know,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know, Dan Slott. Like, why would I want to be his artist? You know what I mean? Like, you're just gonna block everybody and offend everybody and piss off everybody. I don't want to work with you. You know?
Yeah. And I think it's like anything else, time tells the tale, and I think what Didio
Yeah,
is
I don't know how to
doing right
pronounce
now. Yeah, I've heard both pronunciations. I've never heard him pronounce his name. I want to try to catch an interview where he pronounces his name. But where Dan what he's doing now, where he's working with Frank Miller, and it seems to be a pretty independent kind of thing. I think that really says a lot about where his heart is in the
Yeah,
comic sphere.
I agree with
So,
Tim. I respect him. He understood comics. He gave a damn. I disagree with him? Of course I did. You can't run a company on that level, and I got friends who like Cam. Cam and I have been friends. I'm sure we disagree about something. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Doesn't mean I don't love the
Well,
guy.
I mean, hell, I look at it like this. I've been running Alterna for 17 years. There's things that modern day Pete would disagree with Pete from 10 years ago about
Yeah.
something that was done. You know what I mean? So, like, there's
So
times where I've disagreed with myself, obviously, because we've done different things over 17 years where I'm
there's
like, well,
also
that wasn't the best way now, and now this is a better way, and let's try it out. And sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't. But there's there's a big difference between trying something and it works or it doesn't, or it appeals to someone or it doesn't, than it is to you're trying something and let's say a customer expresses some kind of disappointment or whatever it may be. And then instead of being like, all right, thanks for your feedback, we'll make note of it and appreciate it and hope you stick with us. There's a difference between that than there is between being like, oh, yeah, we'll go F off.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like, okay.
Well, just
And he's never done that. I've never seen him
no,
do
not
anything
never.
like that.
I've never heard him be mean. In private's one thing. I know for a fact Stan Lee said mean things about people in private. He's a human being like the rest of us. But I try to, I do my channel, and now I'm trying to get my comic book launched. You know what I mean? So I'm trying to think of myself. What would Stan Lee say? If somebody said to me, "Oh man, that looks like a bad idea," or that whatever, I'd be like, "Oh, well, I hope you find your time to change your mind, true believer." Because the second issue you're gonna love. That's what you got to do. You can't just say "f you."
Yeah, yeah. It's the same thing too. Like you were talking about with King Cryptid. So if somebody comes along and doesn't like something that was in an issue of King Cryptid or whatever it may be,
Oh, you tell
depending
them to go
what.
screw themselves, Pete. Come on,
Well,
man.
I guess so, right? I gotta be modern and keep up with the modern times, and
Call them a Nazi and a bigot.
it's funny how we see so much of a push to being compassionate, empathetic, and everything else like that, kind. It's such a big push, yet it seems like people have become more unkind,
Right.
less compassionate. I wonder why. Maybe because the version of compassion that's getting pushed around is being weaponized left and right, and it's far from.
My personal
Be
theory is, I think
compassionate or else. Be nice or else you'll
it's it's
pay.
it's easy. It's easy to be it's easy just to treat you like a guy on a screen. You're not a real person. You're like Max Headroom. You know what I mean? So to insult you, I'm not really insulting a human being, if you get my drift. I
Yeah.
think now that we've had the internet for like 20 years, people like, on message boards, man, back, I don't know if you remember message boards around like 2005. I would say, like, I think Captain Marvel could beat Superman, because if you look back at this issue, Captain Marvel beat Superman. Next thing you know, I'm getting dogpiled, and they're saying things about my mother. Why? Because I was just words on a screen. I didn't have a face, and I think like these editors, these little kid editors at Marvel Comics, they probably never lived in a time when you said things to people's face. They were probably terminally unwell.
Yeah. I mean, everyone needs some kind of mental health help at this point to deal with that because it's become obvious that you say like if someone and people have said it to me, not a lot, but some people have said to me like, "Oh, that book sucks," or you suck at this or you're bad at that. Okay, you know what I mean? Like it's I don't understand when people are like, "Oh my god, what?
All
You
right,
know
what would
what?
you say?
You."
I'm sure somebody has disliked King Cryptid, right, and vocalized it. Now, what happened?
Very, very, very small way though, which was, and I wanted to know more, but they were like, it's probably just me.
Okay,
I
okay.
like it, but because it was mostly like, I really like it, but, I think it's just me and I gotta get more, because they weren't acclimated to like the episodic storytelling style. They were more used to like the way modern comics have like a long form decompressed storytelling style.
Yeah,
So it was kind
that's
of
one of the
like
things I like about your comic.
yeah, that's one of the things that most people seem to really like about it. But this one in particular, it was kind of like, but they were like, it's not bad. They were like, it's good, but I think I just have
Okay,
to get used to it,
now,
and that's probably the harshest
because I really
criticism
like,
maybe that I got.
I like, I like your comic. I think it.
Thank
First
you,
off, I
man.
just like that it's self-contained. I can pick up any issue, but also there is a path to follow. It's heading towards something which I do like. But let's just say some crazy person, F you, King Cryptid is the worst comic I've ever read. How would you handle that? Like, let's role play.
Oh, I would basically just be like, oh, I'm sorry to hear you didn't like it. I
Right.
hope that there are comics that you like at Alterna and that you stick with those.
Well, maybe Wolf and Batsy would be, more to your
Yeah.
liking. Do you like horror? How about
And
you?
if they were to
Unit
respond
44.
back in a less aggressive tone, I'd be like, "Oh yeah, well I'm glad to hear about that," or and then I'd say
Right.
basically,
Like
"Hey,
a normal.
check us again down the line. Maybe we come up with an issue that'll be more to your liking." It's
Perfectly great response. I mean,
I
that's
don't that
professional response.
I mean I grew up playing hockey on Long Island. I don't really you get crap left and right.
Yeah.
It's kind of like someone comes along and talks crap or whatever, and you're just like, okay. Do you let it affect your performance and your game and what you're gonna do? I mean, if you really let it get to you on that level, it kind of shows that you're letting that stuff take precedence over the other thing that's supposed to be very important to you. So, is it more important to you that you're constantly appeasing everybody, or is it important to you to stay true to what it is you're doing while maintaining some sense of civility? When and understanding that there's a reality that exists where not everyone either gets or likes what you're doing, but more than likely, the people that are reading it or getting it, they enjoy it. And then when they come, because I don't know. I don't take like over the top praise or criticism in either direction. I love seeing that people are enjoying it because I like knowing that people feel that they spent their time and money in a wise way and it added something to them, and that's great. I obviously want people to enjoy it,
Right.
but at the same time, it's one of those things where if you live and die by praise and criticism, man, that's going to be a tough road.
Yeah.
So you really have to have a certain outlook where that's not going to be the mentality the whole
I,
way.
I've always thought that, like, with presidents or whatever politicians, or like 20% of the people are just going to love this guy no matter what. 20% of the people are going to hate this guy no matter what. So it's like 60% of the people you gotta look for to get criticism and see what's going on. You know what I mean?
Oh
Like,
yeah, yeah. Like
so I guess it's the same with comics.
I'm sure there's people when they've seen me on a stream, they're like, I don't even like this guy's face. I don't like this guy's voice. I don't like, why is he wearing a hat? Why has he got sunglasses? I don't like this guy. I got sunglasses on because I get bad migraines staring in front of a
Oh,
screen
really?
all day. And the hat kind of became a thing just because I don't like the feel of the headphones, but I hate like the earbud in the ear thing.
Oh, okay.
So it was just like, okay, if I wear a hat or a
That's
beanie,
your
it'll
persona now.
cushion my. And then it became like, now it's really weird if I am not to wear one, and not to mention it's not comfortable either. So it's just like, okay, I'll just go with it, But I kind of dress like this all the time anyway, so
Yeah.
why not? This is
I
if
can't
you
shave
see
the
me
beard.
out and about, like at this point, like that's kind of just how I am.
Can you imagine if it came on next week and I didn't have the beard? You know
Yeah,
what I
it
mean?
will. It would be like the disguise now. If I want to blend
Yeah.
into society, just don't have a hat and sunglasses or anything on, and just walk around.
So Cam has this thing. He says right here, when did everyone develop such thin skin? I remember most people I knew growing up never minded disagreeing openly in a friendly way. Um, which gets to what you're saying. First, you said you were playing hockey on Long Island, and
Yeah.
I'm one of 7 kids. I mean, disagreeing and problem solving and fist fighting was just a way of life. We were forming camps in my house, but I'll say this, that and somebody's going to take this the wrong way and call me whatever, but I think the problem, like, we got rid of bullying. Like, I your boy Zach said
Well,
this, and I agree with him.
yeah.
Like, I'm kind of pro bullying, and now I'm not talking about criminal behavior, grabbing somebody's arm and breaking their arm. I'm talking about, like, sassing somebody, and then, like, you develop like a fight or flight, or better yet, you
We
develop
didn't.
sarcasm.
I have a retort for that. We didn't get rid of bullying. We made it much worse. We made it much worse because we took away your ability to defend yourself. And
Okay.
now the person, when you defend yourself, you're worse than the bully. And if you notice, that happens all the time. Someone will start or say something to you in a bad way or whatever. And I mean, this has happened to everyone I know, including me. And if you do something back, and you are in, especially if it happens on social media, and you're in a position where you either really just you ended, they started the fight, but you ended it, or you have a higher social media following or whatever, because that's apparently that proves your worth as a human being.
Right.
Then all of a sudden you're worse than the initial person who started with you out of nowhere, and that became the norm, and that became how it is. So we have, and then we have another double-edged side. Now, I worked as a substitute teacher for
Oh, really?
3 to 4 years in Massachusetts. Yeah, and and I
I
did.
was a public school teacher for about 4 or 5 years too.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
wow. Yeah, I worked at 5 schools. I worked all the grades from kindergarten to senior, and I was there at the time. This is around 2010 when they really started to push the anti-bullying initiative, and I would be there with these kids at these assemblies because I worked every day, and sometimes the same school, sometimes the
Yeah.
same class, but usually it's a different school, whatever. So I saw all kinds of schools within the 5 districts, and some of these anti-bullying, I'd say actually all of the anti-bullying assemblies were more about having you distrust your friends, not trust yourself, even lower your self-esteem, and trust authority. It was constantly about
It's a
turning
good
kids
point.
into tattletales. And again, this is about 12, 13 years ago. It was about turning kids into tattletales, breaking down the bonds of trust between each other, and that even for the smallest, slightest infraction, running to the authority and saying that this person did this, has had this, and blah, blah, blah. And hopefully you would get rewarded and they would be punished.
Oh, wow.
It was a system. My blood
I
would be
remember,
boiling at those
I remember we
assemblies.
used to we used to have a thing, in or out, in or out. Like when a kid came and tattling, in or out. Are you trying to get somebody in trouble, or are you trying to get somebody out of trouble? Because if you're trying to get somebody in trouble, I don't want to hear it. But if you're trying to get somebody out of trouble, come on, let's go. You know what I mean? So I remember one of the older gray haired teachers was like, in or out. And I was like, what are you talking about? But I thought that was a brilliant way to teach the kids. There's an appropriate time to
There's a
snitch. And
difference.
that ain't
Yeah.
snitching. You know what I mean? Somebody
Yeah.
got shot. That you try to help somebody who got shot. You know what I mean? You can't have a guy go. But Sally said a bad word. You and Sally go solve that.
Yeah. And
I
over the
remember
course
one
of those
time.
years when I was a sub, I would be seeing kids that were friends when they were like in 7th grade. By the time they're then a sophomore or so in high school, they're no longer friends because I saw their friendships deteriorate because they were turning on each other. And it would
Oh
be things
man.
like, two kids kind of horse playing, right? And then this is a specific instance that occurred. And one of the teachers saw them that was in the hall and said, "What are you guys doing? You know that you can't be blah, 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 hands off each other." And they're like, "Oh, we're just playing around. Sorry, sorry." And they're like, "That's it, both of you over." And they're like, "Well, it wasn't my fault. It was his fault." And all of a sudden,
Becomes the
right then and
prisoner
there,
dilemma, right?
exactly. And now they start blaming each other. They start having this thing where, you don't have that trust. You don't have that friendship. You don't have any. And all of a sudden, what happens? You empower the authority. And to have that occur, of course, now we see what we're seeing. Now those kids are full blown adults, and we're seeing a lot of that kind of behavior where it's trust in authority,
Well, that's why
distrust of
everybody
each
has
other.
allies and nobody
Yeah.
has friends.
And before, back in the day, when I was a kid, and we would be doing these anti-bullying, because there's always some kind of anti-bullying assembly. It was more about building up the self-esteem of the kid that was getting bullied, and trying to teach a sense of compassion and understanding across the board to create kinder kids overall. Kids that were understanding of, like, look, if you're feeling a certain way and you're feeling angry, something happened, whatever it is, it was that kind of thing of like, don't take it out on your classmates. And if you're a kid that's getting picked on, realize that just because somebody is doing this thing that shouldn't be done to you, it doesn't lower your sense of self as a human being. It doesn't mean that you're a bad person. It doesn't mean you deserve that to happen to you. And it was more about, when that happened, coming to a teacher or an adult or whatever, would be to not just help you obviously within that situation, but it was also to make you realize, and the adults to have them realize as well, you want to preserve the fact that these are children. These are not prisoners. these are
Right.
these are people who are growing up and don't know sometime how to deal with any of this stuff. So it's like always understanding and keeping focused that these are kids. These are kids. And to have that sense of wisdom when you're looking at that and going through that, and have perspective on the situation, and to not just demonize, one kid over the other constantly. And for the love of all that's holy, you don't talk to both of them at the same time, because you're not going to get the truth. So you got to talk to each of them separately before you talk to both of them at the same time. So I saw a huge shift take place.
Yeah.
Into, both were wrong, and that was that, and that was how it went. And now, when I was a kid, there were a lot of teachers who handled certain things well, but there were some teachers who handled it very poorly. So I would get like picked on, and I'd get into fights sometime, and I would end those fights. So the other kid was, more busted up than me. And then I would get in trouble as well, because they're like, well, how did you get picked on? This guy's got the nosebleed. You
Right.
look pretty
Well,
fine.
you didn't see the first 6 incidents that I rolled with. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it was like, that was like a precursor to moving along with this anti-bullying agenda, which allowed even more and more bullying,
Well,
and a
you've seen
complete
Goodfellas,
total
right?
Goodfellas.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Everybody takes a beating sometimes.
yeah, yeah,
I remember I was in third grade and a fifth grader was picking on me. And that's a big difference in size, weight, third grade to fifth grade, and I was scared. I was scared. And I just remember he was just, I don't know what it is. He decided he was going to pick on me. I honestly, I was just like walking around picking my nose, and this guy's going to. So I was like running away. I was afraid to go outside at lunchtime. And then I remember it was like, if it was in January, New York, so there was like big blocks of ice that would fall off the. And he just came, and I picked up this block of ice. I closed my eyes, and I felt the impact, and when I opened my eyes, there was blood everywhere. Just completely disproportionate response. But I'm a stupid kid, and I just remember the lunch lady came, and they brought me to the principal's office, and I was getting in trouble, and all I could think of was, I'm not getting bullied anymore. Like I was just like, it's done. It's done, and I never got bullied anymore. I developed a reputation, and so what? I took a couple of detentions. Everybody takes a beating once in a while. You
yeah.
know, to me, it was worth it. Am I going to get bullied for the rest of the year, or am I going to take what, a 3-day detention in third
Yeah.
grade?
Well, then that's the thing, that what happens with a lot of these cases is that the kids don't just have it out before it turns into something huge. And these kids that are brainwashed into trusting authority and trusting the system soon discover the system's not really going to do a whole hell of a lot for
Right,
you.
right.
And so then they continue to get bullied, sometimes even in worse ways. And now we have ways where, kids are trying to cancel each other on using social media and the internet, and emotional blackmail, and sometimes real blackmail of just various things. And then you get kids that are either killing themselves, or they're going in and they're shooting up a school or doing
Yeah,
something
I didn't want to
horrible.
bring that up, but yeah, like
But
because they realized that the authorities aren't saving them, so they got nothing.
yeah. And it's because no one wants to look at the fact that these are kids that are obviously going down a bad path in life, and every turn they look, they're being let down, they're being manipulated, they're being pushed into a corner. What's going to happen? As soon as they have the outlet and the ability to snap, they generally
Well,
will,
I'll also,
unfortunately.
I know you love a good conspiracy theory like me. I'll say that every one of these school shooters, it's been, you read the article, and somewhere towards they were on some sort of antipsychotic medicines.
Well, yeah, I mean, you throw
Every
in,
one of
there's a
them,
lot of different, yeah,
and most of them didn't have a father living with them.
there's a lot of different scenarios to it. And the fact that people want to make it's easy peasy, it's a gun issue, or it's this or that, it's like, no, 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 there's
No,
something far worse. There's something far
it's
worse,
just
far deeper. It is a societal issue, but more importantly and more directly, it is an issue of what's happening at the home and within the community and within that school.
right.
Period.
Cam says bullies want to know if you'll back down. My wife is a sweetheart, and she was bullied, and man, I was just bullied by guys. A fist to the face, when you got 7 brothers and sisters, a fist to the face is nothing. But girls, man, what girls do to other girls is I'm glad I'm a guy. And
Yeah.
she just got in this girl's face, in ninth, because she went from junior high school to high school, and she was like, I'm not going to deal with this in high school. And she got in the girl's face, puffed up her chest and said, like, let's go, let's get this done. I can't live like this anymore. And that was it. They weren't friends after that, but she went on to a different target. And
Yeah.
again, that brings me around. It's like she solved her problem. I solved my problem with the block of ice to the head. Cam solved this problem. Kids today, they're not given the chance to develop these skills. Like you said, I never thought of that. That's a pretty observant. That's a pretty pithy.
Yeah.
Is it a
Well,
more pithy observation?
and honestly, too, I see it going back to hockey and my years playing hockey as a kid too, and into adulthood. You know, if you take the fighting out of the game, you have far worse things that occur. Far worse things that occur. You have cheap shots that actually injure people. The likelihood and the statistics of injuries occurring during a hockey fight are far lower than injuries occurring during the actual game. Far lower.
Hmm.
People think like, oh, they fight, they're going to kill each other, they're going to give each other this and that and the other injury and whatever. You're way more likely to take a player
You
out
throw a punch on ice
completely.
skates, you're going backwards.
Yeah, yeah, you know, yeah. So it shows that okay, you know, you have a mentality here. You need, and a lot of hockey teams have gone away from this, and it's unfortunate. They always every year are talking about getting rid of fighting, getting rid of fighting, but you take the enforcer out of the situation, which keeps the other team honest. So you have enforcers on both teams that go, look, you touch that guy, I'm gonna pound your face in. So you better be careful not to do a cheap shot to that star player because otherwise I'm coming out, I'm going to bash your brains in. You know, so there's that fear mentality that keeps people honest. And there's also a system and there's a code involved with that where the enforcer's not just going to go run around and also be an instigator and be a dirty player the
Sometimes you
whole
got to
time
take a
too.
beating. You know, good
Because then
fellas.
the other team's enforcer is going to come along and then you're going to fight. You know, so but you have to be able to have people policing themselves in certain situations because otherwise it's going to get worse. And how it gets worse specifically in the sport of hockey is you'll have a lot of cheap shots that occur where people get concussed or paralyzed or worse in some cases where certain things have happened over in different kinds of leagues that have banned fighting where these guys are going like 30 miles an hour at each other and bad things happen. But if you don't have anybody there to be like, look, you do anything and this guy's gonna come out. You know, you just like you send the dogs out and they just go, you know, they're all crazy and they're gonna kick your ass. You know, but if you don't have any of that and there's no recourse other than, oh what, I'm in the penalty box for 5 minutes, oh I lose a game, you know, oh I get suspended, big crap. That other dude just ended his whole career. Or
Yeah,
worse.
yeah. You always give me something to think about. You know, low boy. I guess that's how you say that. I don't know. Can we talk about the fun?
IO1BO2.
Oh, okay. Yeah. He wants to talk about the alternative fun. You know,
Sure.
I'm breaking my rule. I always try to treat every video as if it's people's first introduction. So, who are you, Pete? You know, 45 minutes into this talk. Who are you?
All right. I'm the
So,
founder and publisher of Alterna Comics. But yeah, I love all kinds of things. And I don't mind having a good talk. But
yeah,
if people
I
are
love
here to
I love
hear the comic talk, let's have the comic talk.
yeah. Let's talk about it a little bit. So, what you know, how are you corrupting the youth, as Frederick Wortham would say? You know, how is you know, you started me on a Wortham rabbit hole, by the way. Thank you very
Oh,
much.
oh, that's because what you were watching the show last week.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh, but yeah. So as far as the books we're putting out, let's see. We've got a whole bunch of great sci-fi, horror, fantasy kind of books. We've got Blood Realm. We've got Horace H. Hoover. We've got Unit 44. King Cryptid, of course. It came out on a Wednesday. We've also got, let's see,
Wolf and Batsy.
Wolf and Batsy. And we're bidding adieu in a way to Red Koi. But
Yes,
Tyler's got a lot on his plate. So he's going to finish out the rest of the story on his own. But Red Koi is still going to be a part of the Alterna family. And we're still going to have various merch and whatnot with Tyler. I'm still talking to him. He's a friend. He's a great dude.
that's good.
He's only about like a half hour away from me too. He's up in Maine, and so he needs the time to focus on what he's got to do. And
Yeah,
so
you never know
I'm
what's going on in other people's lives. You know what I mean? So,
yeah, I'm glad that he's also honest with himself about it because over the years I've had a lot of creators that I feel like. And I always ask the creators to do this, you know, be honest about the situation you're in and what you can give to it. I don't want to see anyone making comics and, you know, putting themselves in the poorhouse because they want to get the issue done or whatever it may be. You know, I try to let people know, okay, we're going to work together to promote, we're going to work together to do these various types of things to spread the word, but there has to be a reality that's there to understand your limitations, whether they're time or skill, in terms of what you can accomplish. And if there's an issue with money and creating the books and things like that, and you find that, well, my readership keeps going down and I can't really promote it and I can't have the the time necessary to give to the title, it has to be a thing where you evaluate it and go, well, maybe I can just do this on my own and I don't put out like 2 or 3 or 4 issues a year. Maybe I put out one. Maybe I put out one every 2 years, to kind of balance it out with your life as well. So I always try to get a lot of creators to get in that headspace as well, to look at it like it's not just, and I use this expression a lot, it's not just like a field of dreams where you're making the comic and then people will find it and everything will be great. You have to put in a lot of work to it.
Right.
The
You're big
promotion and
on
marketing part, you have to be able to
yeah.
get out there and talk about your book.
You're big on that we have to promote our own stuff. There's no more Stan Lee to do it for us. You know, everybody has to become their own marketer, which I understand some people. I think the creative sitting in your basement drawing your comic book. A lot of people aren't built for promotion, but unfortunately, that's the way it is these days.
It's just it's another skill set that really has to be learned to go down the independent path. I find
I
that there's a
agree.
lot
Void
of
Walker
people.
was great. I loved Void Walker. That was a good
Yeah,
job.
there's a lot of people who they want to make the comic full time. They want to do that, but they don't want to do anything in terms of promoting it really. They don't want to do anything really in terms of getting the word out there. And if they do something, it's like the bare minimum. And you have to find a way to cut through the noise. You have to find a way to get out there and not just talk about the comic and let people know what that's about, but also to find a way also at this point in time, I think more than ever, you got to find a way to be able to give back. And what I mean by that is finding the time to be a part of something greater than yourself. If you're going to be independent, which it's a word that some people might think that means you're doing it alone. It couldn't be farther from the truth. When you're making an independent comic, you're not doing any of it alone, even if you create the whole thing on your own. You're counting on your readers to be there for you, to spread the word, to enjoy the book, to talk about it. You're counting on your publisher if you're working with one. If you're not working with one and you're doing everything and you're a self-publisher doing every aspect of your comic, you're still counting on people to be able to help you with promotion and to be able to help you spread the word. I don't know anyone that does any of this 100% alone. So being independent doesn't necessarily mean you are alone. And to have people take that mindset and not understand that, look, you have to be able to also be a part of helping out other people too. It's very important. It's the thing that sets apart the corporate mindset from the independent mindset. Corporations aren't going to spend even a fraction of a second wanting to help someone else succeed. That's not going to happen. And sometimes they aren't even going to spend a second to help each other succeed within the corporation. So, as an independent, to succeed, you have to be able to have both competition and cooperation. So, the
Yes.
competition drives you to create something better than maybe what someone else is creating. So that's the drive, because you're competing for potentially the same customers. Although it's not a zero sum game, it's not that one customer has to only have that one thing from that one person. But the cooperation factor is what enables you to have respect for your competitors, and you're going to be working together with them in some capacity, hopefully, to help each other succeed.
Well,
And that's the thing that's
this
great.
brings us full circle to what we were saying before, like working together with people. If you never learned to solve your problems grade school because you were taught by your teachers to mistrust everybody, you're never going
Yes.
to be able to work with people. I've been on this internet now, doing my channel now for almost 3 years now, and there's people that I've learned to implicitly trust. You being one of them. Brian Bow is a guy I just implicitly trust. Josh Howard. I could list, and I don't want to list because then I'm going to forget somebody, and then they'll get upset. But but at the same time, I've already disagreed with those two guys about something that I'm like, no, this is what I want to do, and I want to do it like, oh yeah, that's cool. We were just, so I disagreed with somebody, I trusted somebody, and then just today, somebody that I talked to recommended another guy that I probably will work with. So yes, I'm trying to make a comic, but just look at this: 5 degrees of separation. This guy knows this guy. This guy knows that guy. This guy's helping me over here. It's a lot of fun, but ultimately, it's me. So yeah, like Cam was kind of goofing around when he says, "Let's be independent together," but that's exactly it. We are independent together.
Yeah, that's why I've got that in the intro. Little
Yeah.
Hermie.
Yeah, it is funny because I laughed at that, but it is true. Hello, Eddie. Good to see you. Eddie's been commenting on my videos since like the beginning. It's great. It's great to get loyal guys. A couple of guys I've talked to on the phone now. Like,
Yeah. Well, it's all part of
his house.
if you're in this space as a creative individual, you're a creator. You're also a builder. So if you're a builder, that means you got to build things, and you're going to end up building a various sense of community. And I know people they stray away from that word. It's become a 4-letter word, and I hate that it has, because community isn't a commune, and it isn't communism. Community
You're
is
absolutely right. Because when somebody says "let's have a community,"
yeah.
because that what it means busybodies to me. But yes, you are right.
Exactly. And it's because it's been hijacked by
Right.
people who have turned the
Well,
word and
look, we have a
bastardized it.
community right here.
Much like a lot of, yeah, exactly. Much like a lot of various things that have happened in this world with hijacking of certain concepts and language.
Yep.
But having a sense of community, a sense of belonging is vital to survival. It's vital to your spiritual health. It's vital to just having a positive outlook in life. Because again, if you don't view it that you need a sense of community, a sense of belonging among other people, and you think you could just be a lonely hermit for forever,
that's
man, that's going to be a tough life.
That's how empathy is being weaponized.
And yeah, that's how people get isolated. And then once you're isolated, it's divide and conquer, right?
Well, you said that before, like, oh, let's all be empathetic. Let's be empathetic. So I think human beings, rationally, we have to be 51% good. Otherwise, there'd be no progress. Otherwise, if we were 50-50,
if we weren't more good than bad, we wouldn't be here
anymore.
Right.
We'd still be cavemen. You know what I mean? So we have to logically, we have to at least be 51% good. And I think this whole movement that's going around now, like this progressivism and whatever, it's like you said earlier in the talk, they're weaponizing empathy and compassion and using, that guy said a bad thing, so we need to shame him. And now, like,
instead of showing that compassion and educating,
I don't want to be somebody who said a bad thing,
if you view that their perspective is maybe archaic, or maybe they're ignorant to something, and you want to try to show compassion and educate, you can do that. But more than likely, the best form of compassion you can show is to just live and let live.
Yeah.
And it doesn't necessarily, and it's difficult to do once it's too late. That's the thing. So you can't just live and let live for forever, because there's a certain mindset of people where that's when all of a sudden, they go, oh, okay, good, you're a doormat. So you do have to stick up for yourself.
Right.
But if all of us were able to kind of get more in the mindset about things like that, it would be different. But again, that's not possible.
Well,
so
I like what Paul says here. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize you still.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say. So you have to be willing and to stand your ground and defend yourself and defend what you believe in, but also be understanding that sometimes the best form of peace is peace apart.
Agree to disagree.
Yes.
I like what Paul says here. Bad actors polluted the word being communities, and I agree, because I shiver when I hear that word now. All I can think of is busybodies trying to, politely tell me to do something I don't want to do. But communities are good. Yes, we are in agreement. And that was the heart and soul of the comic shop. It was the nerd cave. We could gather up and argue over if Kroll was a good or great film. Exactly.
Yeah.
You're smiling about this. You said you went to a muck time tour. How many times did you go in there and there was just a group of guys older than you talking about, Frank Miller? What are you talking about, Frank Miller? I don't like Frank Miller. He destroyed Dark Knight Returns was the worst thing that I've had. No, this is the best thing. And you just got into this conversation and nobody got mad. I love that. I miss that. I go into my comic book shop now. There's a local one right around the block. It's just 2 old guys and a cat, and I'm always the only customer. It's depressing.
Yeah. And nowadays we find a lot of stuff like this virtual digital
Yeah,
community. And it doesn't mean that necessarily that's the only form of belonging that people do have, but a lot of people now more than ever, it's a greater sense of feeling of belonging because we're able to find each other across all points of the earth. So there's a capacity for tremendous good with that, and that's why I think that even that is being, sought out to be weaponized as well. Because you can't have awful things occur in the world when everyone's getting along, and you're like, hey, that person over there that's like thousand miles, they're pretty similar to me, and that person over there too. We like the same kind of music, and we like the same kind of food. I
yeah,
can't hate these people, because it's never really the leaders that are fighting each other. Maybe they should. They should get in a boxing ring and hash it out. Maybe do some good for them. But it's usually them telling other people to go fight their battles for them, and it's such a shame. And this is kind of just the way it's always been. But that's what's so important about storytelling, and that's what's so important about being able to communicate ideas and have different things come about. A true sense of diversity. Because imagine a world where, and I know some people, this is like their wet dream, but where everyone thinks and acts and behaves the same about everything.
yeah.
That's a world where we truly have ceased to exist. Because that means that,
War is peace, freedom is slavery.
yeah, at no point in time is there even a question that things could be better or it could be different, or that we just all eat the same food, we all talk the same language, we all think the same way, we all dress the same way, imagine that. So like what we're really seeing again, it's a twisting of the words. We're seeing a push towards diversity, but it's really an increased forced homogenization where
I, s-
everything it becomes the same.
I saw somebody. I wish I could have originated this, but somebody said kids today or people today are trying to fight 1984 by acting out Animal Farm, yet they understand neither. And I thought that was 100% accurate. Everybody thinks they understand what 1984 was all about, and now everybody's the same, everybody's equal. But some people are more equal than I was like, oh my god, that quote is so freaking accurate. I was like, oh man, I hope nobody sees this tweet and I can isolate it and steal it. And Eric says Dark Knight Returns is a terrible comic. Batman is not a psychopath with a gun, and Superman is not a doofus government lackey. I don't like the Dark Knight Return. I never liked it. I never liked the art. Um, and I didn't like the whole grim and gritty that followed it.
Yeah. Well,
So, yeah,
I always enjoyed it as a complete alternate version. Like in a parallel world where this is the personality set in this specific story. And I'm like, okay, I could go with it like that. And I think what happens with a lot of these comic companies when things like that happen, and the same thing occurred with Watchmen, everything becomes, even if they don't build it into the mythos, the official mythos, like they did with the Killing Joke, which never should have been considered part of the official mythos. It should have just been considered like an Elseworld story, which is what it was originally intended to be. Even if they don't make the story canon, they make the tone of it become
right.
canon, and that all of a sudden sets the precedent for what's to come. And it's a strange thing. It's a strange thing that it occurs like that, because I think that every single time that happens, we lose something great. Instead of it just being like, look, let this thing be this thing, and keep doing the thing. All of a sudden, it becomes, look at how everyone loved the way this thing came out, or loves this character now, or loves this style of storytelling. Let's make all of our stories just like
Right.
that. But
I
that's
love the Watchmen.
yeah, you're
I
losing sight of what made that thing special and what makes these other things special too. Both are needed.
I love the Watchmen. I was blown away by it. I remember discussing the Watchmen, but I don't want every comic to be the Watchmen. First off, I know it's popular to bash Alan Moore these days, but I still love Alan Moore. Alan Moore, come on my channel. I'll treat you nice. But I still love him. But and if not for the Watchmen, we wouldn't have the Homelander today. It's still that influential. But and without the Watchmen, we wouldn't have the Zack Snyder verse. But I want my superheroes to be good. What Superman is supposed to be. Oh man, Superman. If you're making movies where people are scared of Superman, then you shouldn't be making a Superman movie. Superman is, that's like that's like his power. Like he radiates hope. You know, when Superman, even if it's his first appearance, he lands in the middle of Metropolis for the first time. People go, "Oh my God, who is that cool guy? I like him." You know, oh wow, he can lift cars too. Holy mackerel, this guy's got heat vision. Like everything he does is amazing. If you have anything other than that, then make up a new character. That's the Homelander. I don't know. So I'm tired of it. So the Dark Knight Returns kind of made everything dark and gritty. The Watchmen reinforced it. I forget which one came out first or second. I kind of forget.
Yeah, well, I think the creators get a lot of undue crap for the corporate decision. You know, so some people go, well, Alan Moore's to blame or Frank Miller's to blame or whatever. No, they're neither are to blame. It's the corporation that decided that this is what we're going to publish predominantly now. Same thing with like a character like Wolverine or Harley Quinn or Deadpool or any character where all of a sudden that character's everywhere, and characters that didn't have their personality before like that are now acting like that. Same thing what you're talking about with Batman. You know, Batman's super popular, so how do we make Batman work in a darker film? Well, if we make Superman dark, then Batman's got to be even darker. So now you just have like an extra layer of darkness that
Right.
shouldn't be there. You know, you can have an amazing story told with the juxtaposition of here's light and dark, but they're both achieving good. You know, and there's a respect. You know, I'd like to see more of a
I like
Batman
the
and
idea.
Superman as opposed to Batman versus Superman.
Yeah, I like the idea of Superman being this radiant sun and Batman being darkness. Like I always looked at it as Apollo and Dionysus. You know, the radiant shining figure, and then like the mysterious dark figure. You know, like again, I'm giving stuff away in scripts that I'm going to be writing if you know if things are successful. Is Apollo versus Dionysus and how that means for civilizations and blah blah blah. But I like that better than Batman's dark and grim and gritty, you know, and whatever. And
Well, because yeah, that's not the entirety either of Batman. Anybody that thinking that Batman is he's just dark, you know, is missing 90% of Batman.
yeah, I wanted to give Eric credit because he says he wished Superman would go back to where he was in the Silver Age with single issues as an entire, and he didn't realize how much he missed that until he read King Cryptid 1 to 4. Yeah, I want Pete to get all the accolades he deserves. King Cryptid is a fun comic that every issue is self-contained.
Yeah,
That is
yeah.
excellent.
Every
You know?
issue is a complete story, and they
Right,
all connect. So you could go in there, and when we get to that point, you could read like issue 22 and go, oh, yeah, I enjoyed it. That was a good story. I'm not confused. I know what's happening. You know, there's some things that they're mentioning that say I should check this issue in the past to learn more about it. But other than that, like the story's a complete story. You know, I'm not feeling like I just jumped into the middle of a conversation and then I left the conversation before it ended,
right.
which is like how so many comics nowadays, that's the story.
Right. Was that check? I forget if it was because I know Jim Shooter had that, and I know John Byrne echoed it, but I don't know if I don't think they originated that. They said every comic book is somebody's first comic.
I've seen a lot of people attribute that to Stan Lee, but
Yeah, it was Stan
yeah.
Lee, I think, and I absolutely agree. You know, like I just did a video. I was talking about a American flag by Howard Chaykin. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but
Oh yeah.
I challenge you to pick up any random issue of American Flag and do a book report. It is impossible. It is, you know, it's a good comic. I like the comic, but geez, it was not a newbie friendly comic.
Yeah.
And that's gonna kill sales in the long run, which is
Well, yeah, and that's something else that's talked about a lot, where they go, okay, well, that style of storytelling, where every comic is a jumping on point, also means that they're a jumping off point. And the thing is, no, wrong. Every comic, technically speaking, is a jumping off point, but not every comic is a jumping on point.
You're absolutely right. That's a good point. You see,
So
I like the way you have like little perspectives that
yeah, because and the reason that I mean, there's almost no comic book reader that is still a comic book reader that would go, I really enjoyed this issue. I never want to read this series again.
that was so good that these future issues will only taint my enjoyment.
Yeah. Usually it's like, oh, that was really good. And if you
That
would,
pizza
depending
was
what
so
number,
good. I'm not gonna.
you're going to look back and see what you could pick up, or you're going to look forward to the next one.
Yeah.
You know, but it's not like every single comic that's good. So it's only crappy people that make the crappy stories. That for every issue they view as this is a jumping off point. We got to make sure we get them. And what a weird mindset to have, right? Where you're thinking like, okay, well, if you tell this long form decompressed story where they're always never really getting anything complete, that we got him, but they got to see through it to the end. That's a weird mentality to have. That shouldn't be the mentality. And again, I don't know if it's the mentality of the corporation, the higher up, giving that type of word for this is how the stories are told, or if that's how the creator wants to tell it, and be damned with whoever, or if there's an editor involved. There's so many different things at that point that happen at the corporate level, but on the indie level, I think something that would really benefit a lot of indie creators is to try to build up their stories with staying focused on a world, on characters, on whatever. And then you get something where over the years, now you can look back and say that look at all the stories, look at all the things. Because if you keep doing one and done, one and done, one and done, King Cryptid, then on to the next, son of a King Cryptid, then on to the next, boy Cryptid, then on to the next, and it's just one issue, one issue, one issue, one series. That's it. Graphic novel, whatever it may be. You never have that established sense where you're like, oh yeah, that character. I know that character. I'm looking forward to what's happening in the world of that character. Wow, they're on issue 30 now. Look, I gotta catch up. There's never any of that. That is what basically turned the iconic characters that we know and love in comics into iconic characters. Imagine if they were all just one issue done. There's been a lot of characters that are like that in a lot of different stories, but almost no one knows who the hell they are because they never stuck around long enough. So indie creators, I would love to see them try to hone in on telling stories that revolve around a world, the characters, and that kind of stuff. And that's what we're trying to do at Alterna as well.
I think you're doing great. I really like your stuff. I'm unabashed alternative fanboy. I don't know why would you know, but my hard drive crashed, and I have a computer software where I catalog all my comics, and I got my comic collection is vast. It's like 50,000, over 50,000 comics. So I've been scanning them all, and then I make a video of each long box, And one of the things I realized is I could talk about Fantastic Four, this man, this monster, and I could talk about that particular issue of the Fantastic Four. And I didn't get that as a kid. I couldn't find that as a kid. I bought that as an adult, and I read that as an adult, and I remember it. And I probably got that around the same time as Avengers Disassembled by Brian Michael Bendis. And I could pick up that one Fantastic Four comic, this man, this monster, and recite lines of dialogue. But I look at these Avengers comics from 2007, and I can't remember anything that individually happened because the story took 7 issues, to the point with each individual issue. This cover, I don't know what happens in this particular issue, but I remember when Spider-Man met the Black Cat in Amazing Spider-Man 194. That was a self-contained comic, a story that burns in my mind. And look at Chris Claremont. That Welcome to the X-Men, Kitty Pryde. Look at the story. I just said that Welcome to the X-Men, Kitty Pryde, and you remember that comic. You remember the art. You remember panels that popped out into your face, into your mind rather, and you could think about that comic. But if I say like House of M, you're talking what, 6 to 24 comics if you want to count. And
Wow, yeah.
It kind of, I can't think of the covers. I don't know what issue numbers they were, and that's one of the reasons why I do like King Cryptid, because I remember Behemoth, which is a great name. I love that name. I don't know, was that a name you came up with as a kid? Because that has like one.
Oh no, yeah, that was the name that came to me when I wanted to make a Mothman genetic experiment character.
Because that just like the wonderful childlike creativity of a kid, Behemoth. I just love that. So then that just means that you still retain your child.
But there's a reason too, even within the story. There's an Easter egg in issue 1, which is what leads him to believe that is his name. So it works both ways. Come up with the name and then figure out an interesting way to build that into the mythos.
Well, that's good, self-contained, but yet there's something.
Totally.
For the person that reads the entire series.
100%. Yeah. And that's the thing that I'm talking about with complete stories. I'm not talking about where these characters have instant amnesia. How insane is that? I'm talking about that you could tell these stories in an episodic way, in a self-contained way, but they tie together. there's continuity.
All
Things
right.
that happen matter. There's a progression
So
along
you
the
feel
lines.
continuity is important.
Oh, 100%.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
To the point
Yeah.
where
King Cryptid isn't like it's every issue
it's
is
not The
just.
Simpsons.
Yeah. And even then, The Simpsons still has some sense of continuity. But it's not like that. Yeah, it's not. Yeah, it's 100% the way comics were for decades upon decades, where you have a progression of the character's life, what's happening within the world, various events that occur, but you don't have something that's being dragged out and is so referential, so meta within the series that you will not understand what this story is. And that comes in terms with the writing. So when it's written for the next time we see Behemoth, the next time we see him, it's going to have like that asterisk to go back to issue 1.
I love those.
You know, it's going to have various little things where we just touch upon something, but if you want to read the whole story and get the backstory, instead of just expositioning it out, go check issue 1. But
I
it
miss that.
progresses the story and everything that's occurring within.
I missed you. You don't really see. I used to call them the yellow captions, because they most of the time they were yellow.
Yeah.
And then the editor's
note.
asterisk,
Yep.
CFF number 1112. I love that. That always
Yeah.
made me feel like, oh wow, there's more to this. And if I want to, I could go get this. And back then there wasn't eBay, and I used to have to hop on the bus to again. My mom, don't you take the bus? Okay, mom. And then I go outside and hop on the bus.
Yeah, I mean, for instance, so issue 3 that already came out is the flashback issue where we've got 4 friends back in '84, and they're looking for King Cryptid in the forest, in the White Mountain National Forest. So based on what happens in that issue, it progresses, and the next time we see these people within that issue, we see them in issue 8. And now in issue 8, it starts off where we have the 2 adults that were at the present day of the flashback. Now, present day, they're in a car and they're going to where they're going. They're going back to Lincoln, New Hampshire, where they grew up. And the person in the car, first page, Ernie's going, "Can you refresh my memory? Why are we driving again in the middle of the night?" And right then and there, that's for the reader who came on board for that issue. And he goes, "I told you, Ernie, it's about this picture and blah, blah, blah. And remember," and he's like, yeah, exactly. So he's like, yeah, I get it. It's late, man. It's late. But why are we going back to where we grew up? And he's like, because I think it holds some clues for us to figure out, why is this coming around again? Why is this happening? Maybe I can learn more about my brother's disappearance. There's all these different things. And right on page 1, we get everybody caught up instantly,
Right.
while connecting still to the previous issue. And now there's also an editor's note that references, go see issue 3 if you missed on what this conversation is, if you want to learn more about what they're referencing.
I love that.
You get right into it, and then we go into a flashback again 2 or 3 pages down the road, and then we go back to 1987, which is the last time that Jeff and his friends were all together. So that's Halloween night, and something happens on Halloween night that's pivotal to what occurs for the rest of their lives, but we're already seeing them in present day. So that's just like an example of building upon that. And all these different things, whether it's issue 1, issue 3, issue 8, issue 9, they all have a continuity within King Cryptid, and they all add up to something, and they all keep the story, the overall story, progressing, because we're going to see a lot of build up throughout the story and the title as well. But every issue, you're able to enjoy it without feeling completely lost and not knowing what the hell's going on.
And that's a lost art, because can you imagine all of a sudden getting into the X-Men today? Jesus,
Yeah.
what's going on?
And it should be, where do I start, right? It should be, well, whatever issues out right now.
And that's why
that
manga
should be
is
the
doing
key.
so well, because manga just get number 1. You want to get into, I don't know manga that well. Just get into number 1, and there you go. It's continues. I have to say thank you to Paul. I'm sorry, I'm going to say your name wrong, Bachelor. This is only my 2nd super chat, so thank you, Pete. I read Void Walker and Trespasser. I know now why you don't take submissions for miniseries. Both could breathe a bit more. I love both of those.
Yeah, that's the case for. That's not just the case for all the miniseries, but it's also the case in terms of miniseries based on creator production schedules, because there's quite a few instances, and more in the past, I don't know, the last 3 years of Alterna, where there were creators that they were either taking a very extended hiatus after they finished one miniseries and they wanted to go on to the next. And I mean like 2 or 3 years. So you'd have like issue 4 and it's like, wait, issue 5, you're not going to have issue 5 out for 4 or 5 years? Like what on earth? So and then you'll have another miniseries where someone's being on the hook. It's issue 2, and then like a year or two later, issue 3, and then like another year or two later, issue. I mean, what on earth, right? So that kind of thing. If you just had an episodic style series, not that that's great to have one issue out every year. Obviously, readers would want more, but they never feel like, oh man, I don't know what the hell just happened. It's just where's this story going? Or they forget, or you get an even worse position where there's all of a sudden now you have to almost market it all over again and remind people because people will just assume it's completely gone. Maybe they got rid of the comics, maybe they sold the comics, maybe they just gave up on the series and they could care less to finish it because it's been so long, whatever it may be. So there's all kinds of various reasons with the miniseries format, but that was mostly a decision that we did with going into Diamond. Diamond was like, oh, episodic, you need a new number 1 and blah blah blah. So it's what happened with Blood Realm. I wanted all the issues, all the series at Alterna to be continuous, ongoing.
Yeah, I
And
love
Blood
that.
Realm could have been that way. And Blood Realm at Diamond, they were like, well, every story arc, go back to number 1 and just volumize it. And I was like, okay, I guess we will. Because they were like, well, you get number 1, you get that sales boost. And if it's an ongoing series, what's going to happen is by issue 5 or 6, most likely we're going to have to cancel it because the sales aren't there. So we did what they told us to do. And, we did what we had to do in that system. But outside of that system, I mean, when we went back to print, we renumbered it and got them going in sequential number order again. But it's a frustrating industry because it's treated as if the only number that matters is 1, and that every other comic outside of that doesn't have any relevance, doesn't have any importance, and it's a strange industry.
Yep, yep, yep. And then again, looking through all my comics, I'm seeing the new Avengers is very egregious. All of a sudden, it just changes to number, like it'll go 17 issues, and then the next issue is number 1. I'm like, what changed? It's the same team. It's the same.
Yeah.
It's the same creative team. I guess they thought it needed a boost, and then when issue 500 of the Avengers was coming out, they changed it to 500. It's like, I know I'm not OCD, but you're driving me crazy, guys. It is confusing. Just keep. I wish the numbers would stay the same. I don't know if Gru the Wanderer. That was like a running joke. This is issue number 1, and Sergio Aragonos would be like, here's the artwork for issue number 1, and Mark Cavanier would go, no, it's issue 17. He goes, no, every issue is issue number 1. We got to make, I thought that was funny.
Yeah,
a little bit of goofing on the comic book industry.
Yeah, it's weird because also think about how many issues are very, very important and they're not number 1. Most of them, honestly.
Right.
Right? I mean, it took 26 issues to get to issue 27 of Detective Comics to get Batman.
And read the first 10 issues of the Fantastic Four. They weren't that great. The number 1 was a great issue because it was important, but they didn't have their personalities. It wasn't until like around issue 15 before Reed Richards was kind of sinister for the first year. Ben Grimm was like a villain. The Invisible Woman had no personality until like issue 80. And Johnny Storm was kind of a jerk. It's amazing that they lasted that long. I guess it's just the imagination of the story. But like you said, yeah, it takes a while for a lot of comics to get their stride.
Yeah,
I like
especially.
Mole Man's great. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about. I remember there's been some past Alterna comics that I absolutely loved. The 12. I think I liked a lot of.
The XII.
Oh, is that the
XII.
official? Is that the
well,
official?
only because that's how people will find it. If they type in the 12,
Yeah,
it'll be tough.
okay, but that the XII. Okay, I never knew what the official was.
But but it is.
That,
it's the
that was the
12 in
first
Roman
Alterna
numerals,
comic
but
that blew me away. Trespasser. I remember getting excited about reading that. Yeah, and I guess you did the right thing because you left me wanting more. I love Midnight
Yeah,
Mystery.
well, Trespasser was supposed to end with just one issue. It was supposed to be a one
Really?
shot, and I told Justin, I was like, "Look, you got to flesh out what happens after this scenario."
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, yeah. So
And
I,
didn't I hear talks that it was like being optioned for?
yeah, it got optioned for a film. It's currently optioned and in development by the co-screenwriter of the Wonder Woman movie, the
Oh,
first one.
wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
So
Cool.
hopefully they manage to do something with it. I know they have a director. I think they still have the director attached, but sometimes things get weird. But I'm outside of that scenario,
Yeah,
so yeah,
he owns it.
I just hear about it when you guys hear about it at this point. Yeah, yeah, and he owns it. So whatever happens with it, I hope for their sake, because Justin's a good dude,
Cool.
and hopefully I think Christian would get something out of it. Christian Rossi, he's phenomenal.
Yeah, he's good. He's getting better
And
and better.
hopefully it does. Hopefully it turns into a film. That'd be great.
Yeah. I, haven't we learned from the '94 bubble Bio the number one? Yeah. I, I I sometimes get a little too salty with people when I see them posting pictures of the CGC comics. I just now that I'm trying to venture into being a publisher, I guess I got to be more diplomatic. But I
Yeah,
see.
let people do what they want to do,
Yeah, you're
John.
right, Pete. You're right. I see a sled comic and I see a comic book that's no longer a comic anymore.
Yeah, but now if they force you to get yours graded, then be like, over my dead body.
Yeah. Yeah. I accidentally bought a few CGC comics. I didn't realize that they were CGC at the time, and I always threaten that I'm going to do a live stream where I break it open and read the comic in front of everybody. I don't know. Are you a CGC guy?
Not really. I mean, I never went CGC, but PGX had offered to. They were advertising with Alterna for a while, and they were like, "We'll slap a bunch of books for you if you just want to send some stuff." They wanted to catalog Alterna in their system and get like my signature on file, so they could verify or whatever. Someone came up with it. I was like, "All right, sure." So I sent a couple of my own comics, from my own collection, and then I sent a couple of the Alterna ones. And I think I've sold like 99% of them at this point because I'm just like, well, they just sit there, you know? And I'm like, if someone likes these like that, here you go, have it, you know?
Yeah,
And yeah.
I'm torn. Like again, if I ever do manage to publish my own stuff, would that be a cool perk to get some CGC really high and sell it?
I don't know how people
Within,
get it guaranteed.
I'm thinking like with issue 2 comes out, I'll have some CGC number ones. You know what I mean? I
Yeah,
definitely
yeah.
couldn't do it beforehand. I just wanted to say to Heroinberg, I may be a jerk, but I'm a loyal jerk. Heroinberg was one of the first people to reach out to me, so I'm very loyal. So Heroinberg is a Pittsburgh creator. He makes his own comics, and he does like web TV shows of people in costumes fighting crime. He's a lot of fun.
Yeah, yeah.
So Heroinberg, thank you for still watching my stuff. I appreciate it. The guy who started CGC, John. Oh my God, really? Oh my God. Cam is saying the guy who created CGC was Steve Borak, a guy who came to. I remember him, and now that Cam jogged my old crazy brain, I remember him saying this, and I think I even remember saying to him, "It'll never work, kid." And now this guy's probably a millionaire, and I'm sitting in the basement.
So we've got John to blame. We've got
Yeah,
John to blame because
I'm the
Steve
dream
wanted to
crusher.
prove him wrong. And now look at it.
Wow, Cam, I did not know that. Yeah. Hey, Cam, if you got his
Look
phone
at
number,
that.
get him on my
That's
show.
interesting.
I want to talk to him. I like Steve. I like Pete. Pete. Now I'm getting his name wrong. It's a plastic brick. If you got room for them, collect them with my blessing. I buy reading. Yeah. I was talking to Rob Geronimo the other day. He was doing a draw stream, and he pointed out Rob Geronimo, for those of you who don't know, is the creator and artist and writer of Blood Realm, a fantastic comic. And he pointed out John Romita. I'm not John Romita. John Buscema, a Dell comic about Alexander the Great. Now I love Alexander, so I had to go. So he's like, yeah. He sent me a link. There was one for like $5 on eBay. I was like, you don't know me too well. I had to get the $70 very nice. So I do want good quality comics, but I also want to look through them and read them. It's a plastic thing in my hand. I can't look at the ads. I can't look at the letters page. But whatever. And Pete, you're absolutely right. I gotta shut my mouth and let people enjoy
Yeah,
stuff.
to each their own on that level. You know, I'm not really much of a collector on that front. But yeah.
Yeah. Metatron, I have a crude joke that goes with this. Email me at John's Longbox and I'll tell you my crude joke. But I try not to curse on I only curse on Pete Simeti's channel. I'm still embarrassed I cursed on your channel. Expensive paperweights. Okay, good. So it looks like I'm not all by my.
Well,
I thought I was no problem.
I like the idea of them if I could just open it.
I see, well, yeah, I see the
And
value
there
of
are
it.
some things like that. There are some cases out there that not like CGC, not graded, but there's cases. I think like Ultra Pro makes one where you can actually kind of enclose it and then take it out whenever you want, and you can just kind of display it and that kind of a thing. And it's got like a UV coating on the plastic or the glass or whatever it is, and this way you can have it and not have to worry about it fading. But I like the idea of having them displayed. That's kind of cool and fun, but not the like forever enclosed kind of mentality.
Yeah,
And the grading part of it, I'm just like, I just look at the comic and I'm like, yeah, it looks good.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I sold a comic and the guy wanted me to, I put it on eBay, and man, has eBay got difficult to work with these days. But about 20 years ago, I sold a comic and the guy wanted me to give him a number. And I said, dude, I don't have a number. I'll take pictures of it. I'll give you whatever you want. I think it's great, but I'm not going to give you a number because then what? I tell you it's a 6, and then you get it. You say it's a 5, and then what? You want your money back, and then you crumple it up and mail
Yeah,
it back to me. So I said either you want it or you don't want it. I got to say, I agree with Kevin. There's nothing better than a room full of old musty comics. Yep.
yeah, yeah.
Oh, I wish CG had a QR code for a download of scan. Oh, that's interesting. That would be kind
Well,
of
that would
interesting.
be cool, like a little
Yeah,
code
that's a
right
good idea,
there in the
Brian.
thing, and then you could, still not. It's not the same, but yeah, still good. At least you could look through the comic and own like a digital copy.
That is interesting. I never thought of. Oh, the smell of vinyl. Yeah, I got my record collection out of storage when I finished my basement. I got my comic collection out. You know, I tell my wife I'm never moving. I'm going to die in this chair, and then I'm going to haunt whoever buys this house after me. I Yeah, high quality Mylar bags and acid free book. I'll tell you a story, Cam and Pete, if you're interested. When I moved in 1993 across the country, and I put all my comic books in a room in my parents' house. It was like this little musty room, and about a year later, I came back and I went to check on my comics. Every one of them was fine except for the first Todd McFarlane Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man. That was literally a bag of. It looked like a bag of cocaine. It looked like a drug bag. It
Oh
just
wow.
disintegrated because there was a hole in the bag. But all the other comic books were fine. So I've since replaced that comic. But I was like, I got to get him out of here. So that's when I put him in a dry storage, and I put them in the storage. And the guy was showing me the storage unit, and I was like, I want to go upstairs. There was 2 floors. And he goes, what do you want to go upstairs for? I said, because I don't know if you know Baldwin, but this was Baldwin Harbor. It was right by it. I can't even remember the Sam's Clam House that gets flooded every couple of years.
Yeah, yeah.
I was like, it's only a matter of time before there's a flood, and I want
One
my
bad hurricane.
Yep. I said, I want my comics up. And I'll never forget the guy. He didn't just roll his eyes. He gave the biggest over exaggerated eye roll in the history of eye rolls. He was like, okay. So I went upstairs and I put all my comics upstairs. It was there for like 15 years, and Hurricane Sandy came. Now my brother lived 2 blocks away from the storage. His house was destroyed, leveled, and I remember the police wouldn't let us in Baldwin Harbor because there was couches in the streets from these floods and everything like that. And all I'm thinking of is, oh my God, I don't have a comic book collection anymore. Oh my God, I don't have a comic book collection anymore. So the storage unit wasn't answering the phone. My wife is like trying to be nice to me, like, oh, maybe we'll go on vacation. Like she's anything to keep me from like just losing my crap. So I finally drove down there, and I'll never forget, there was a crane just picking up garbage and throwing it into dumpsters. And I'm like, oh my God.
Oh man.
Oh my. And I walk into the storage unit, and that same eye rolling guy is just like, this guy must have been just getting yelled at or watching people cry, all day long. And he was like, oh, you here to get your stuff? And the place just stunk like mold. This is like 2 or 3 weeks after. And I'm like, yeah, I'm here to get. He goes, what unit? And I'm like, oh, it's two. Oh, second floor is fine. And I ran upstairs, and I joke because the first floor it looked
Wow.
like a apocalypse movie, just disgusting things falling off the wall. And then I joked that I went upstairs, there was butterflies and a unicorn ran by. It smelled nice, and my storage unit was perfect. And when I came down, I looked at him, and I was just like, and I like to think that he remembered that he gave me the biggest eye roll.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
My comic collection was fine.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. So Mylar bags and acid-free boards, Cam, you're 100% right. They survived my musty parents' basement. They survived Hurricane Sandy. You know, they survived. What was the other one? There was another hurricane. Yeah, oh no, everything was fine. Now I live in mortal fear of a flood in the basement. I got humidifiers. I got pumps installed. I'm an electrician, so I got all the gadgets hooked in. I got a sensor. If there's any water, it'll ring my phone, and I'm just leaving work right then and there. My comic books. Yeah, I got my heart racing thinking about that. Have you ever had any like? Everybody's got stories of like their comic collections getting destroyed.
No, I've been lucky so far. I've been lucky. Yeah. I
Good.
mean, I can't even think of anything close to that.
Yeah, I've had friends that were like, yeah, that we had a house fire, took out everything. Not just their I had
Yeah.
a friend that their kid plugged in their iPad and then like stuffed it under the couch, burnt down the house to nothing.
Wow.
They were lucky they got out. So that's my big fear.
No, I've been lucky, man. Knock on wood.
My heart was racing. Yeah, that comic book collectors, we all like, no, tell me Cloak and Dagger #4 wasn't damaged. Yeah. Yeah, I know. I'm just amazed, Cam, that Steve Borak, a guy who came into our store, and I remember this guy used to come in a paper suit because he worked in the diamond district, and he would make jewelry, and they would have to wear paper suits because people were shaving the gold and sticking it in their pockets. So at the end of the shift, they would have to take off the paper suit and burn it, and then all the gold would collect at the bottom, and they would, And I remember this guy, and now he's probably a millionaire making CGCs.
Well, that makes sense then why he was doing that. He brought in like the grading of gemstones into the grading of comic books.
Smart guy. Oh, they need a new kid at that point. I don't know. Oh, yeah. Don't get me started on this kid. that kid is touched. Hurricane Ida in New Jersey. Yeah. I don't know. We just had a hell of a storm here in
Yeah, didn't you guys have a state of emergency a couple of days ago?
Yeah, my foreman's like, go to work. We're at the airport. The rain was coming in sideways. We're putting up a new terminal at the airport, and they dig everything down to put the pile drivers and the steel, so everything's mud. The guys are going up on lifts and they're turning sideways because the ground is
Oh, wow.
mud. And the foreman's like, go to work. So one of the guys just said, I'm going home, fire me. And then one by one, everybody's like, you didn't want to be the first guy. We all just left. It was bad. And I where I live here in Long Island, it's the highest point in Long Island, so I don't have to worry about floods. So that's good.
Well, yeah, that is good, man.
Yeah.
Well, your basement should be fine.
My basement's fine. I
Yeah.
had an engineer come down here that was scraping the concrete on the walls. They said there's never been any moisture. So I was like, oh, good, yeah. You got to.
Yeah, I hear you.
Oh, what's this? Oh, my father's house literally got lifted by one foot after Sandy. Yeah,
Oof.
yeah. Kevin, well, Pete, you lived out here. You were here during Sandy, right?
No, I wasn't. Yeah,
Oh,
I was,
you had
I was
moved
living
already?
in Massachusetts at that
Oh,
point.
you were living in Massachusetts.
Yeah.
I remember that in Massapequa. I'm sure you know Massapequa.
Oh, yeah.
They were selling houses for like 40 grand, and then there were Sandy houses. You bought them for 40 grand, and then you'd pay like another 40 grand to get them elevated. I was telling my wife, 80
Wow.
grand for a house, 80 grand, but she didn't want to live by the water. And the older I get, I don't want to live by the water either.
Yeah.
Yeah. Eric Guapo said, I lived out in Albuquerque, and they have so many old cars and so many old pristine near mint comics out in Albuquerque. It's so dry that the comics, you could just leave them on your table for 20 years and nothing happens to them.
Wow, man. that's definitely not Long Island life. That's for
No.
sure.
Well, think about the ice on the ground, and then they throw salt on the ground. It rots your cars.
Yeah, yeah.
If you're into classic cars, move to Albuquerque. You will,
Be
and
that
people will
dry,
drive them.
arid climate.
Yeah, it preserves
Yeah.
everything. Yeah.
That's funny because yeah, when we lived out in Gloucester in Massachusetts, that's right. That's like almost one of the last towns before you get just it's the rest of its ocean till you hit England.
Oh, you were right on the
You
water.
know, yeah, that killed both of our cars. Oh, it was horrible. When we moved up here, we got both cars inspected and registered up here, and they were like, "Yeah, these cars are rotting. There's a lot of rust damage." And I'm like, you just move, and it's been 4 years in a coastal town. Forget it.
Yeah. When I remember when I moved to Albuquerque, it was so dry. Like you were like, you couldn't summon up enough moisture in your mouth. And then when I moved back to New York, I remember my father got me up. It was like 5 o'clock in the morning, and we were working on the lawn, and I was just looking around at the mist in the air, and the
Mm.
house next door had like ivy up, and I was like, Dad, we live in a jungle. After being in Albuquerque, I'm so used, and I remember the air was thick. I was like, it took me a while, I guess, to get used to it.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
there you
Yeah,
go.
I would.
Store the comics in the Cheyenne Mountain Vault.
Oh yeah, why
There you
not?
go. In those salt, they have those salt vaults that are supposed to be like the driest places in the world.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I heard of those. That'd be interesting.
yeah. So Pete, I got to go to bed. It's 9:45. I
I
usually go to
yeah,
bed.
I gotta get to packing up stuff, so that
So
works for
anything
me.
that I started talking too much. The caffeine started kicking in. Anything you want to say?
I mean, other than a big thanks to everybody for being here and
Yeah,
being a part of the conversation tonight, and thank you guys for supporting Alterna and checking out King Cryptid. We're still funding King Cryptid, of course, so if you've missed out, you haven't actually missed out just yet. Go to kingcryptid.com to back on Indiegogo, or go direct back on alternacomics.com/King
the link is in
Cryptid.
the description.
Awesome. And then make sure subscribe to my YouTube channel on here. We do a lot of great interviews and everything almost every day. It's
Yep.
been a blast so far. Been doing this almost for 3 months straight, and I've had a great time
I've
doing
been
it.
on Pete's channel a few times.
Yeah, it's been a lot of
Always a
fun.
always a fun talking to. All you got to do is say hello, and next thing you know, it's 2 hours.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. And
Um.
so yeah, just thanks to
And
everybody.
you're going to have individual campaigns for all the comics going forward, right?
Yeah, so the creators are going to be running their own campaigns. I'm going to be helping them out with that. And for one or two of them, I might help with fulfillment depending on what their situation is like. And Rob's going to have his. So this is a tentative schedule so far. November or so, it looks like Brian Baugh is going to have a Wolf and Batsy campaign. The new books for Alterna are going to print next week. So then
Okay.
fulfillment's going to begin, and that should be wrapped up within 2 to 3 weeks. Then Alterna is going to be doing merchandising campaigns pretty much monthly, 10 to 12 a year. And those are going to be fulfilling within the next month. Like Alterna Ween's almost done fulfilling. It'll probably be done either
Yeah.
Tomorrow or the day
And
after.
for those of you who don't know, Pete is his comics come great. They're some of the best printed comics I've ever seen. That's not even a joke. I have a very tactile, I don't know, fondness, whatever. When I get Alterna, they look right, they
Thank you,
feel
man.
right. They even smell right. So they
Yeah.
always deliver. Pete he's never failed to deliver. So there you could trust.
Yeah,
him.
we got 100% fulfillment rate.
Yeah, absolutely.
And sometimes I wish it was faster, but sometimes we just can't help it. There's things out of our control sometime. But February, tentatively right now, we've got Horace H. Hoover finishing out that run. Fabrizio's going to run that campaign. Then Rob around April, May. He's going to have his Blood Realm campaign for the next 5 issues to finish out that story arc.
One campaign for 5 issues?
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
And then he's going to have, we're going to have in June or so, it depends on when Rob wants to do his, either June or July. It's going to be, and it came out in a Wednesday campaign combined with Unit 44. So we'll have the next 3 issues of it came out on a Wednesday with 2 issues of Unit 44. And then King Cryptid is going to be a campaign I'm going to aim for every September is going to be King Cryptid. And I'm hoping we can keep on this rhythm where we're all doing these campaigns roughly the same time every single year. So the creators can run theirs, and then Alterna, me, I can run all of these merchandising campaigns with the blessing of the creators, and we can do a lot of different things and get a lot of different merch out there on a consistent basis. So
That's
the next campaign that we're doing for Alterna is going to be winter apparel. And so we're going to have full all over print hoodies. We're going to have blankets. We're going to have, I'm looking into if we could do mugs or not for everybody. We'll see. And then we're going to have a new Alterna beanie. So relatively small amount.
I misheard you. I thought you said a beating.
Oh, yeah, an Alterna beanie.
Come to your house and beat the crap out
Yeah.
of you.
It's a navy blue beanie with a white Alterna logo. We've had people asking for that.
Yeah, I definitely want a blanket.
Yeah.
I want a blanket, but I also don't want to cut up my comics and send you the coupon. So
Yeah, well, between that, the way we're doing this, and then we're doing the Alterna rewards. So people every time sign up as a member on the site. If you're already a member, you'll get 100 Alterna coins as a bonus on your next purchase. But if you do sign up as a member, it's free. You get 100 Alterna coins right for signing up. You get that as a bonus, and then every purchase you make, every dollar, you get an Alterna coin. And every certain amount, you can redeem those for percentages off. So if you earn like the 100 right off the bat, gives you a coupon for 10%. But and it's your whole order. But if you earn enough to like 460 Alterna coins, you get 50% off your entire order.
Wow.
So there's a lot of savings you could do if you
it's
go
not
in
like
there.
Alterna comics are expensive, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
you can buy up like the whole store, use that 50% off coupon and get that out to you. But
So,
also
Eric,
we
what's
have
you got boxer briefs coming, Alterna box.
I'm looking into those. There's no easy way to do those, Eric. I'm sorry. And then the membership program that we have
I'll
now
tell
that
you what,
a bunch of people are on that, and that's been going great too.
If
so
the
far.
next Alterna campaign gets to 100,000, me and Pete will do a live chat in our Alterna boxer briefs. How's that? Pete's not agreeing to anything.
But yeah.
I don't want to.
But yeah, we got a lot of things down the line coming for Alterna, and this year is going to be a really good year in terms of
Sounds like it. Sounds like you're excited.
various things we're going to be doing, all kinds of merch, new shirts. Every year we'll have like a new line of various things. We'll have more things with trading cards, more things with art and commissions, like a campaign even just to get commissions through various Alterna creators. So there's all kinds of different things coming, and this will enable me to do what I do best, and it will enable the creators to do what they do best. And I'm hoping, and I'm hoping with them running their own campaigns too, that it gets some of them to kind of break out of their shell a bit and go out there and promote their books, get in front of people, get more people to know them. It gets
people used to go in and looking up what's new at Alterna.
Exactly. So it's all part of that. I want people to really become, for lack of a better word, become their own Stan Lee. Everybody's, running around trying to figure out, who should be Stan Lee of comics. Everybody should be Stan Lee for their own comic. Talk about your comic, get it out there, spread the word, make the rounds, all that stuff. Because I know some people are like, I don't want to do this or that. Well, it's either that or you can go drive to various places. You can instead of doing like a digital book tour, a digital type convention or panel or whatever, you can go drive all over the place, all over the entire country, whatever you want to do. You got to spread the word though. You can't just make this stuff and never tell anybody about it because no one's going to know about it at that point, So I really am looking forward to seeing the creators come into their own on that front and getting the word out for their own stuff without necessarily having me be the face and voice for their book. I want them to be associated with their books. I want to just be the guy that publishes and helps make it happen. I don't want to be the forefront. I don't want to be the face man, the front man for their books. That's and that's something that happens too much within comics where creators I find are not that they're being lazy about it or anything like that, but I think they're almost being timid about it, and they don't want to necessarily go out there and do what must be done to be entrepreneurial in that respect, to actually get
I
out
know what
there
you're
and
talking
talk
about.
about their stuff.
Again, I'm nobody on the internet, and I've already been, since I've been hosting live chats with creators. I've had a few, smaller creators ask if I'll just flat out promote their comics. Like, they don't even want to come on live because they're shy, and I can respect that. My wife doesn't want to be on camera. She doesn't want to talk. But I do I want to? Yeah, I'll talk about comics. I've talked about Heroinberg before I even knew who Heroinberg was. You know what I mean? But I don't know, dude. I got to promote your comic. Yes and no. I guess I am promoting. I had Wolf and Batsy comic on my channel before I knew
Yeah,
who
yeah.
Brian Bow was. You know what I mean? Then he reached out and started talking to me, thanking. You know what I mean? But I'm a little sympathetic that there's some people that are shy, but it's like you gotta,
Yeah, you got to find,
gotta.
and everybody starts slow with it. It's a
Right,
new skill set. You're kind of breaking
right.
outside of a comfort zone for a lot of people, and it takes some time. I mean, I've been doing the YouTube kind of thing, I don't know, 5 years or something, and I'm just now starting to feel relatively comfortable with it. It
Yeah.
takes time.
I'll go back
So,
and watch my first couple of interviews, me with Mike Barron. And I was like,
oh yeah, like everybody's first videos are relatively painful.
oh God, yeah,
But it's like you got to do it. You got to dip your toe in the water, and you got to manage to find your way throughout. It's a whole other skill set to develop. And if you don't want to go that route, you have to find another route that you want to go down to promote. You have to find another way. Yeah, yeah, and you got to get the word out. It's plain and simple. You just have to find a way to get the word out. And the YouTube is kind of like public access TV, but
yeah.
like anybody can see it. And then the newsletter, I view that as it's like a direct mail campaign. But you got to utilize, those are the two biggest things, I think, is finding some kind of platform, video wise, to promote, and then doing the direct mail, the newsletter version of that instead. But social media, if Twitter's your thing, Instagram's your thing, whatever, Facebook, I don't know, try it all, whatever works for you, whatever you're comfortable with. But this is a really big component of it, and it's a big component that a lot of creators don't utilize. So I want to see a lot of these guys, and Rob Geronimo's been killing it with his videos. I see Fabrizio doing more and more. Brian is getting in a better living situation. So I think he's going to be able to take care of certain
Yeah, he
things
set
and
up a
promote
studio.
more.
That's
Yeah,
yeah. He set up.
and then the same thing's
And
happening
Fabrizio,
too. Yeah.
don't, doesn't he have like the perfect like NPR voice? Like I listen to Fabrizio, and it's just like, yeah, this is just a happy little squid monster about to eat someone's face off. And yeah.
Oh, Fabrizio. Yeah, yeah. So it's
And
like,
he's so clean cut looking, you know what I mean? Which makes the insanity even scarier, because
yeah, yeah.
if he looked like a
Um,
raving lunatic, then you expect it.
so I think they're all gonna start coming into their own in
Yeah, yeah.
2024 with a lot of this, and I'm looking forward
And
to
I
it.
mean, you got the creative talent, you know,
Absolutely.
you know,
Yeah.
Horace H. Hoover. I can't say enough. That comic is outstanding, guys.
Oh
Anybody
yeah,
watch
yeah.
this?
Fabrizio is
There's
unbelievably
only been
talented.
like 2 issues of it, and I'm like frothing at the mouth to get the third issue. Wolf and Batsy #7. When you open up that page and you see that Gorilla Suit Maniac, that art, I looked at that and I just stopped and I looked at it and I was just like, this is like Will Eisner quality. This was excellent artwork. So Alterna Comics is just amazing. I'm not even joking. I love the comics. I can't wait for the comics. I wish they could come out monthly, but I understand life gets in the way. So
Oh,
I
I
think
do
what you're
too.
doing is a
Yeah.
good thing. Alternating the campaigns to keep the public's
Yep.
mind open. That is a good idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Rob, yeah, there's something. I'm kind of scared that I live in the same county as Rob because that maniac lives near me. He's just like, oh, look at this little bat creature. It's just you know, you know,
It's like art therapy for him.
right.
You know.
Yeah, he's an art professor. I enjoy talking to him too. He's going to be on the 25th. Rob
Oh,
Geronimo.
great. Yeah.
And then Brian Bow and I almost said the actor's name, David Aiello.
Danny Aiello,
We're going to be doing a Halloween
Danny's
Friday
nephew.
13th live stream. We'll be chatting. That should be
Oh,
fun.
nice.
Yeah. And then tomorrow I'm having Luke Stone from Fund My Comic. We're gonna talk
Ah,
about
cool.
how to crowdfund a comic. I'm gonna be picking his brain because I'll be venturing off into new territory. So anybody who's interested in that, take notes. Yeah, yeah. I don't know how I found Alterna, but I'm glad it.
Thank you, Eric.
I
Appreciate it.
found it in Fourth World Comics out in Smithtown.
Mm.
Yeah, I went in there and there was just Alterna Comics on right next to the Marvels and DCs, and I brought it up to the guy. I'm like, $1.50. Is this old? The guy's like, no, it's a new company. It's really good. You should check it out. So there you go. You had a guy actually.
I love that we were around for 10 years and we're a new company. See, that's what I'm talking about in terms of, and it's not his fault, but that's what I'm talking about in terms of when so many people were pushing the concept of like graphic novels were like the next big thing in the direct market. And we had graphic novels out predominantly for about 10 years before we put out the single issues on newsprint. And that was an explosion in terms of like people thought we were completely brand new, even though we had had a New York Times bestseller, even though we had had graphic novels go back to print multiple times and we were doing well on like Amazon or Barnes and Noble or this and that. The comic shop level, the single issues are king, and that was a game changer for us. And it's sad that since then the market has changed so much in so many different ways. It's only been relatively like 5 or 6 years 6 years since we had the newsprint issues make their debut. But things change, and you got to find a way to adapt. And
Yep.
this has been a great way for us to do so. And I'm so glad that we've got the support of a lot of readers that we managed to find along the
Yeah.
way, and managed to find us. And
Alternative fans are hardcore.
yeah, and hopefully we
You
continue
got a
to
cult following.
grow year after year. And I'm looking forward just to the fact that I'm able to be a creator again and get King Cryptid out there. So, and speaking of, thank you guys too, because that just passed the 26K mark
Oh,
the
good for
other
you.
day.
Good for
So
you.
we're getting closer and closer to 700 backers too. So
So only 75 more before the boxer brief episode, guys. So just do you think you would draw a whole issue? Because you're a pretty good
oh
artist.
no, there's no way. Yeah,
No way.
it's just not my cup of tea.
Oh, okay.
It's yeah, I'd much rather leave it to the professionals.
Metatron's Cube says real comics. Absolutely. Absolutely. Everybody at Alterna Comics loves comics. These guys could talk comics. I'll have Rob on and we'll run out of time talking about comics. I'll have Brian on and we'll run out of time. Fabrizio, you guys, Wes Locker is coming up, by the way.
Good.
He's coming on too. I want that. I feel like I got to collect them all. I got to get all the Alterna creators on my show. These guys, every one of them, you could tell they eat, breathe, sleep comics. When they close their eyes, it's in four colors. These are real people. Real. Do you have any plans on going to cons?
I've been to a lot of cons in my time. I don't have any plans at this point, and there's multiple reasons for that. But honestly, the biggest one is I hate to say it, I'm just too busy to go to conventions. Every time I do a convention, it takes out about a week to 2 weeks of work that I have to do. And then I'm not traveling to one. That would take out even more time. And then, I mean, to be honest, I've had bad experiences over the years with conventions, depending on who was running them or who was at them or who was threatening my life if I go to them. I just don't need any of that nonsense.
Are you getting these crazy Marvel DC guys that were literally threatening violence to you?
Well, I get the crazy, and I don't know what side of the fence they are for comics, but politically, that they'd rather me not be around and will send rather lovely messages my way.
Yeah.
And I don't need my wife worried about me or family or whatever and things like that. It's not worth it.
Yeah.
But one day, my plan is to try to get something going locally at like some kind of some kind of venue. I don't know, like a VFW, or we go to a bar, or we go to something to have like Alternacon or whatever.
I kept saying that. Come to
going.
my house. Come to my house. I'll host Alternacon over here. I got a big table. I'm a good cook.
My wife is a good cook. Until that point, it's the digital life for me.
Could you imagine like you, Brian, and Fabrizio, and Wes, and Rob all sitting around my table? I think the time space continuum would collapse.
Yeah, seriously, right?
Yeah.
Man, oh man.
But I gotta go to bed. I would love talking to you. I could talk. I always plan on doing an hour. I've learned the hard way that to do an hour
Oh
talk
man, you
is
plan to?
leaving
Holy
people.
crap! I'm
But I could
sorry.
talk to you for 3 hours. I could talk to you for 4 hours.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry, John. I'm
No,
sorry.
don't be
An
sorry.
hour. Holy smokes! We
Yeah,
did 2.
yeah. I gotta wake up at
All
4
right.
a.m.
All right. All right.
All right.
You gotta go. You gotta
Yeah.
go.
Thank you guys. Thank you, Rob. Tune in tomorrow. It'll be crowdfunding 101 with the guy who owns and operates Fund My Comic. So there you go. Buy Alterna Comics. The link is in the description. Thank you, Brian, and thank you for the super chat, Paul. I'm just. I feel like a cam girl, but you know what I mean. I appreciate it. Every super chat's going towards hiring an artist and colorist and everything for a comic book in the future. Thank you, everybody, and good night.